Perhaps you'll remember that story of the dervish who was with a Sufi master for several decades, and he'd seen others weep with joy or fall down in bliss, but he'd never had this experience and longed for it. But one day, when he was leaving the Taqiyya to return to his home, he was chased by a band of robbers intent on robbing and killing him to the edge of a cliff and forced to jump. And as he was falling, he called with all his being, "God, help me." And just at that moment, 2 hands reached out to him, catching him gently. He recognized those hands. He'd seen them gesticulating for several decades. And oh, the ecstasy and the bliss as those hands carried him to the base of the cliff and released him. He hurried back to the Taqiyya of his sheikh, falling down to thank him for saving him and giving this experience. And the master looked at him gently, as the young man could not help but ask, "But master, I cannot help but ask you, why have I not had this experience before?" And the master replied, "And why have you not longed for and called on God like this before?" And then there's the story, similar, of another seeker who was with his master for many decades and also seen people weep with joy and fall down in bliss, but never having had that experience, he went to his master and said, "Master, I've failed. I have to leave you." The master said, wait first. Go for a few days to such and such a house and rest. Give up all your spiritual practices. So after a couple of days at the house, the master sent around to the young being sweetmeats and other delicacies. And then, after a few days, he sent around a platter of fruit, carried by a very beautiful young maiden. So when the maiden delivered the fruit, of course, the young being was smitten and tried to delay her, keep her there, but she left him. After this, he could not eat. He could not sleep. He walked around sighing with longing, not being able to get the thought of this beautiful maiden out of his mind. And then, after a few days, his master came around and merely touched him, and he fell down in a state of bliss and ecstasy. When he returned to his normal state, the young being asked him, "Why have you not given me this experience before?" And the master replied, "Steel has to be heated in the fire before it can be molded. So it is with a heart that must be melted in the fire of love before it can know ecstasy. Where do these two stories meet? What is their deep meaning for us? Where do they meet? Why have you not longed for and called for God like this before? Even steel as a heart has to be melted in the fire before it can know bliss.